In 1968, an archaeologist flew over the airspace of the Bahamas and reported seeing something beneath the seabed that looked like architecture. Not a reef, not a shadow, but a structure that seemed made by hands. And the unsettling question that follows is simple. If a city can vanish under an ocean, how would we ever know what it truly was or what destroyed it? Before we go any further, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us continue exploring mysteries that history never managed to explain. Now let's open the file. This is what the records in the text tell us. The year is 1968. A plane crosses above the Bahamas. Somewhere below, under the surface, under the water, under the quiet floor of the sea, an archaeologist claims to notice an ancient construction. The text describes it as standing there with the appearance of something deliberate, something that does not feel accidental, something that, at first glance, seems difficult to attribute to nature alone. And then comes the detail that shifts the tone. The sea where this discovery is described is said to lie near the region associated with the Bermuda Triangle, a place already heavy with rumor, absence, and stories of things that fail to return. The text offers an estimate that the underwater construction might be more than 10,000 years old. And according to the narrative, the announcement of this discovery did not remain local. It shook the world, the text claims, because it appeared to support something older than the flight, older than the modern ocean map, older than the airspace itself, a description written by an ancient Greek philosopher, named in the material as Paratu. The name, as written, is important because the text treats him as a witness through writing. A man who in an earlier work described a city on earth that vanished, and the text preserves a portrait of that lost civilization. It speaks of a place of strange prosperity, rich in precious metals, gold and silver, walls and statues covered in gleaming surfaces, floors inlaid with silver, and notably a harbor large enough to be called immense. In the source, this vanished civilization is described as having influence that reached far, touching Europe, Africa, and even regions of North and South America. And then an ending, delivered with the blunt certainty of myth, a disaster, an earthquake, a sinking of land beneath the ocean. The text then leans toward a name without hesitation. It suggests, you already know what city this is meant to be, Atlantis. That is the surface story. That is what the narrative wants us to hold first, before the questions begin. Now we move from what is stated to what remains strangely undefined. Because this file is filled with confident claims, but thin details. Start with the beginning. A discovery from the air. An archaeologist flies over the Bahamas and detects an ancient structure under the seabed. But what exactly was seen? The text does not give coordinates. It does not give depth. It does not describe the shape in a way that could be measured, only that it looked like architecture and seemed made by human hands. We are told it stood there. We are told it looked ancient. We are told it was surprising. But we are not told what it was. Then there is the second claim, that the region lies near the Bermuda Triangle. Even here, the text offers no boundary lines, no precise center, no explanation of how near is being defined, just a suggestion, quietly placed, that the discovery sits close enough to a famous mystery to inherit its shadow. And then comes the estimate, more than 10,000 years old. How was that estimated? The source does not say. It is simply presented as if the age arrived complete with no visible path. And then the next leap appears. The text frames the discovery as evidence that the ancient Greek philosopher's description was correct. But even here, something feels unstable. The philosopher's name is written as Paratu in the material. Who is Paratu? Is it a transliteration, a printing choice, a different figure than the one most readers might assume? The text does not clarify. It simply uses the name and builds a bridge from that name to Atlantis. And then we reach the next stage of the story. After the announcement, the text says many scientists decided to investigate and survey the area. But who were they? Which institutions? Which teams? Which expedition logs? The file does not list them. It does not preserve a timeline of their work. It only assures us that the scientific world turned its attention toward the sea. Then comes a new discovery. An oceanographer reportedly found under the seafloor near an island, written as Wominian, a pillar about 10 meters long, said to date back thousands of years. Once again, the story grows heavier. A 10-meter pillar under the sea, an age measured in millennia. And yet the text says something crucial. Even after examination, they could not conclude what material it was made from. That sentence is quiet and sharp, because if the object exists and if it was examined, what could prevent a clear material conclusion? Was it eroded, fragmented, coated, or was the examination incomplete? The text does not tell us. It simply leaves the pillar suspended between categories, not fully natural, not fully defined as artificial, a thing with a date and a dimension, but no identity. Then the narrative escalates again. It cites a report in a newspaper described as Washington, America. Within that report, the text mentions an ocean archaeology specialist named Charles Barriere, who used a locating device, sonar, to detect something underwater. And what was discovered, according to the account, is immense. A pyramid beneath the seabed near the Bahamas, said to rise to 180 meters with a top shaped like a dome. It is here that the file becomes almost surreal. A 180-meter pyramid under the sea. If such a structure were confirmed, it would be difficult to hide from history. And yet, in this material, it appears almost as a passing revelation, announced, then left behind. No follow-up is described. No diagrams, no additional surveys, no photographs offered in the text beyond a few small illustrative images, drawings meant to imagine Atlantean life, and images suggesting sudden destruction. We are given the claim, but not the trail. And then we arrive at the gravitational center of the narrative, the Bermuda Triangle. The text says many people connected this event, the discovery of underwater ruins, with the strange disappearances and unusual phenomena said to occur in that region. And here the language changes. We move from archaeology into implication. The story suggests that if Atlantis truly lies there, then perhaps whatever happened to it is not finished happening. But even that is left uncertain. We are told what some people believe, not what can be closed. And by this point, the case file feels like it contains two realities layered on top of one another. One, a reported underwater discovery in 1968, followed by claims of pillars and pyramids. Two, a mythic city described as wealthy, powerful, and suddenly swallowed by the sea. The text places them together, but it does not show us the seam, and the seam is where mysteries live. What happens when a story cannot be proven, but also cannot be comfortably dismissed, at least not within the logic of the source? People begin to explain, and every explanation in this file creates new shadows. Theory 1. Atlantis as the hidden engine of the Bermuda Triangle. The first idea presented is not about ruins, it is about energy. The text says some people believe that the energy source from the remains of Atlantis still has an effect, not metaphorical influence. Actual influence, power that interacts with the environment. And if that power persists, the text suggests it could cause a shift, a distortion of space itself, a change in the fabric between locations. And from that, so the idea goes, could come the disappearances, ships that do not return, aircraft that vanish, objects that fail to leave a trace large enough to satisfy those who search. This explanation is dramatic, but the file does not treat it as a conclusion. It treats it as a belief, a linking of one mystery to another. But even as a theory, it leaves enormous questions open. What kind of energy is this? How would ruins generate it? Why would it affect some travelers and not others? Why would it persist for so long? The text does not answer. It only preserves the claim that an ancient power might still be active, quietly bending reality where the ocean looks calm. Theory 2. Atlantis destroyed by its own misuse of cosmic power. The second explanation is different. It is not about what Atlantis does now. It is about what Atlantis did then. The text says some analysts argued that the city was destroyed due to fatal mistakes, errors committed by the Atlanteans in the process of managing and using an abundant energy source. And the energy sources named are extraordinary: the sun and the universe. Not merely fire, not merely wind, but power drawn from vast systems, something almost spiritual in scale. The text suggests that their misuse of this power triggered a consequence that was not local. It speaks of a change in the Earth's crust, a shift deep enough to make the landmass sink. And the result, as the file describes it, is what we see: a continent or a city submerged into the seabed. This theory carries the shape of a warning. A civilization becomes too advanced, too confident, too careless, and the planet responds. But even within the narrative, it raises difficult questions. How would such energy be used? What does misuse mean in practical terms? What evidence remains that this happened, aside from the fact that the city is said to be gone? The file does not show experiments. It does not list artifacts. It does not describe machines. It only leaves us with the outline of an idea: that Atlantis was not merely destroyed by nature, but by a wrong decision made by those who believed they could control forces larger than themselves. Theory 3, the simplest ending: earthquake and sinking land. There is also a quieter explanation in the text: an earthquake, a disaster that suddenly swallowed the civilization. In some ways, this is the most straightforward account in the source. A great civilization existed. It influenced distant regions. It collapsed into the ocean. But even this simple version fractures when examined. If Atlantis was so wealthy, if its walls and statues were covered in gold and silver, where is that material now? If there was an immense harbor, what remains of it beneath the sea? If its influence touched continents, why do the records feel so thin inside this file? And if a 180-meter pyramid exists under the Bahamas, why is it introduced here, almost like an afterthought? An astonishing claim that arrives without the weight of documentation. The theories do not solve these gaps. They circle them, the images in the file and what they imply without proving impgoro. The source includes images that feel like echoes rather than evidence. There are drawings described as scholars' depictions of Atlantean life. There is another image captioned as the sudden destruction of that life. These are not photographs of Atlantis. They are interpretations. They show us something important. Even within the material itself, there is an awareness that the story is incomplete. That imagination is being used to fill what cannot be directly shown. And then there is one more image, a photograph labeled as the ruins of a temple to an ancient Greek god. Its presence is strange. Is it meant to suggest a link between Greece and the submerged city? A hint that the myth belongs to a broader historical landscape? Or is it simply a visual that shares the mood of antiquity? The text does not say. It leaves the image on the page like a silent witness, columns standing, while the story around them remains unresolved. By the end of this file, we are left with something that looks like a case, but behaves like a legend. A reported discovery under the sea in 1968, an area linked to the Bermuda Triangle, an estimated age of more than 10,000 years. A pillar 10 meters long, material unknown. A sonar report of a vast underwater pyramid, 180 meters high, topped by a dome. And above all of it, a vanished city described by an ancient Greek philosopher, named in this text as Paratu, portrayed as impossibly rich, architecturally grand, and erased by a sudden sinking. But the file does not give us what a modern mind instinctively reaches for: a clean chain of custody, a stable set of measurements, a complete excavation report. Instead, it gives us a pattern, a discovery, an interpretation, a name, Atlantis, then theories that attempt to bind everything together. And every binding introduces a new tier. Because the most unsettling mysteries are not the ones with no story. They are the ones with too many stories and not enough proof to choose between them. If Atlantis lies beneath the Bahamas, then why does it appear here only in fragments? If the Bermuda Triangle's disappearances are linked to lingering Atlantean energy, why does that energy remain undefined, named but not described? If the city collapsed due to a misuse of solar and cosmic power, what remains of the method that could confirm it? And if the sea truly hides structures older than history, why does the record feel like a whisper rather than a proclamation? This is where history breaks down, not because nothing happened, but because what happened cannot be held still long enough to be pinned to one explanation. Maybe that is the true nature of the mystery, not a single missing city, but the thin, unstable boundary between myth and evidence, between what people say they saw and what the world can preserve. So we return to the question that opened the file. If a city can vanish under an ocean, how would we ever know what it truly was or what destroyed it? And now I'll leave it with you. If you had to choose, Which part of this story feels most real to you? The 1968 sighting from the air, the 10-meter pillar with unknown material, the sonar-detected pyramid beneath the Bahamas, or the possibility that Atlantis is not a place at all, but a name we attach to ruins we cannot explain. Share your thoughts and your theories in the comments, because in this case, certainty is not what survives. Only the questions do.